I welcome you in last lecture of this course and lecture 20th regarding technology transfer through strategic alliance and joint venture. And I am discussing the model with you relating to special purpose vehicle, and to be more precise, I am in offset JVs and SPV. Now, you might be wondering what is this offset is all about, and then what is the relation of the SPV, or why I have started about this particular offset. Now, you will find the offset is generally used with the joint venture, and under the present government policy, offset is promoted in a different segment now. Previously in India, the offset was promoted for the defense manufacturing or defense equipment manufacturing, but you will find that now the government is promoting indirect offset in a different segment. Now, offset means is a kind of reciprocation relating to the procurement. That means, in case of a procurement, what happens? You basically purchase a good or imports the good from the outside country, and in case of the offset, what you try to do, you try to procure this particular good locally, or you give the guarantee that somewhere you are going to procure this particular good locally with a particular specification and the quantity or the percentage, or maybe some terms which will be the part of the offset agreement itself. So, offset is an element that counterbalance or compensates an act. That means, if let us imagine like this, if a foreign company brings a technology in India in the defense sector, and that particular technology is going to manufacture the defense vehicle, then government may assure that out of this particular manufacturing, maybe 20% of the vehicle or 30% of the vehicle government will purchase. So, it is kind of a compensating of the acts which you are doing, or imposes a performance condition. That means, they said that, well, we will allow you to manufacture a particular product in the country. Again, it can be the defense product, and you have to give or satisfy the internal requirement, and whatever you will be left, you can go and export that particular product. So, that type of condition also possible, and you will find government generally promote this particular sector where that particular market or manufacturing segment is not ready, or the government is interested to promote that particular manufacturing segment. Now, you will find this particular policy is in implementation relating to manufacturing of electronic goods. It is relating to the defense. Even you will find it is relating to some of the railway equipments. So, this kind of performance condition is been imposed under the present condition. Now, you will also find that different nation has used the offset in a different manner, and there is a no such definite model available for the offset. Only thing is that the understanding is very clear. In case of the offset, you basically try to give kind of assurance or try to counterbalance or compensate a particular act which I have talked with you in the beginning. Now, what is the significance of the offset at present in India? The opportunity for India to provide a growth impetus to the manufacturing sector, and I believe you might have read and you might have heard from our Prime Minister. He is telling everywhere that India should be manufacturing hub, but at the same time he is telling that we have to have all the conditions right, so that India should not be polluting the environment to be a manufacturing hub, but India should be a major manufacturing hub for the world, because India have a large amount of skilled people. At the same time, India has a large land or the place where this particular factory can be put up. At the same time, India is well connected with the different part of the world in either through its port or through its airports, all these places. So, India is a very suitable place, and India want to be a manufacturing hub for the world tomorrow, which China could achieve, so that there can be internal growth, employment generation, and so on and so forth. And for the foreign entrepreneurs, or the companies who are entering into the manufacturing arrangement, they feel quite comfortable when we they go through or they incorporate a SPV as an offset, because they always want some kind of assurance of the technology which they are passing from the legal from the protection from the legal and regulatory aspect, or the commercial risks which it might be exposed of. So, if any company is bringing the technology relating to production of a defense helicopter, or maybe production of a defense tank, or maybe defense rifle, or the revolver, and all this particular thing, they might want that there should be kind of a protection, it should not be infringe into this particular market. Or if it is electronic goods, there can be kind of a protection. So, the moment government is giving kind of a guarantee, they feel very comfortable, because please do remember, one of the concern which we heard in different forum, or there is a discussion in the different forum all over the world relating to India, that the enforcement of intellectual property in India is not very conducive, and many people even feel very uncomfortable when they basically talk about transfer of technology, because they are not sure about the contract enforcement as well as the enforcement of the intellectual property in the country, or how much time it will take, or the time it take, or the kind of remedy it gives, is it commercially viable. So, these the moment we said that, well, you come out with a offset joint venture, it gives you a kind of a comfort to these foreign entrepreneur. Now, herein is a chart, is not prepared by me, it is basically standard chart taken from some other places, and you can see this how this evolution of the offset policy happened in India, and it is up to 2012, but you will find still there is a further development in the recent year, and you will find there is a more thing which is added in case of the offset policy. Now, in case of the major decision which is taken in case of offset is 2008, you will find there is a offset banking has been introduced, so that there can be a financing to the SPV or the joint venture incorporation, and they have also talked about the list of product which is eligible for this particular offset, and you will find it relating to the civil aerospace or internal security, or other product which can be developed out of this particular offset. And you will find in defense sector today, there is a major policy change relating to the offset, and they have come out with a recent guideline. I believe that guideline is 2015, and relating to the transfer of the technology, and how the government is ready to promote the offset through the joint venture or the process of the incorporation. So, offset is going to be tomorrow's attraction for the purpose of the joint venture and the incorporation of SPV. Now, there is a 3 mode, generally standardized 3 mode is there relating to offset. The first mode is a direct offset, it is basically relating to a particular product, a primary product, and in form of a co-production. So, it basically target a particular segment or particular sector. So, it is not open, but it is basically given a particular sector, like it might be simply production of defense helicopter, something like this. Now, when you talk about the indirect offset, wherein you are basically giving a wider scope, and whatever the production is coming out of this particular offset, it might be utilized in different purposes. Like let us give the example of sensor technology. Now, sensor technology can be used for different purposes. It can be used in defense vehicle, it can be used in normal vehicles, it can be used for any security purposes, so much so forth. So, therein what we talk about, that there is a sort of a form of compensation trading. That means, it can be very wider in nature. And then there is a quasi offset. There is a no formal classification for the quasi offset. It is basically direct as well as the indirect, or mix of both kind of this offset. So, in generally you might have this particular three offset, and you can choose according to the segment you are entering in, and then you can look into the policies of the offset into that particular sector, and what kind of concession or the benefit which you might get out of this particular offset, because as I told you, in case of the offset there is always an assurance. Now, herein I have listed about some options of discharge of offset. Now, sometimes it can be a co-development or co-production, it can be a joint research which you wanted to do, or you wanted to build up on a particular product, like you might have a middle range missile, and then you think that, well, this particular middle range missile can be further made intelligent, or it can be more specific towards the target, and there is some kind of a research which you can do on that. So, you can do this particular thing. Sometimes it can be a subcontracting, subcontracting in the sense that you will manufacture based on the specification which is supplied to you, and then you are going to deliver that particular finished good to the offset the venturer, or the offset partner, like maybe it might come out of the strategic partners, and you will find this is quite common in case of security intelligent or security surveillance kind of product, and it is quite become very quite common now. Now, it can be a contract manufacturing. That means technology has been transferred to you, and license has been given to you, and it has been given with a specific period and with a specific specification, and you need to carry forward according to this particular specification. It can be joint venture, which I have talked with you, or is a licensed production, licensed production. That means it can be, you can go on producing that particular goods, which I have talked with you, either under the contract manufacturing or maybe even under the subcontracting. But when we are talking about the license production, we basically understand that not only the technology has been transferred, but somehow the know-how of that particular technology, or how to utilize that particular technology, is been transferred. But please do remember, there is always a restriction, and there is always boundary condition in this particular case, unlike in case of the joint venture, because in case of the joint venture, what we said, it is a mode structure, and it is easy for absorbing the technology. Now, in case of the offset, you will find there is a concern which many of the public sector undertaking are facing, that how can they constitute a joint venture which is not a public company. Because once a joint venture is a public company, or in a offset the government is participating, then they are facing the problem relating to the restriction which is imposed by the government company relating to the compliance, and these compliance are generally emanate from the constitution, because they need to follow the natural justice process, even if they are going for any particular contract or negotiating the contract or entering into a contract or implementing the contract. At the same time, you will find the moment the government is holding the moment is government holding more than 51% stake in that particular joint venture, it is identified as a government company, and there is a certain compliance requirement even under the Companies Act as well as other law itself. So, this is became a concern for the many public sector undertaking who wanted to compete with other private market player, and there is a several kind of model which has been experimented for the purpose of the offset as well as the SPV. One of the model which is now getting more popular is a 50.5 and 49.5. Now, to be a government company, you need to be a 51% of the holding, and if you are just having a 5% less holding or 0.5% less holding, then in that case you basically fall short of a government company. And in this case, even the government has a majority stake, the government it is not fall within the definition of the word government company, and it is also almost even distribution of the voting right amongst the joint venture partners. So, in case of the offset where the government is joining and where only the two partner is there, or in that particular circumstances, they are going for this kind of a model of 50.5 and 49.5, and this particular model has been experimented only by some of the government agencies. Apart from this particular model, there are several other model which has been developed in India, and this model may be based on the sectoral investment cap, which is been allowed by foreign investment policy or the sectoral regulator in a particular domain. So, it might be even 40, 30, or it might be even 30, 25, and there might be remaining, that means 80 remaining 20. So, there is a different kind of model which you will find this happening, and when I am talking about the model, it is basically the equity holding and allocation and the ownership into that particular joint venture agreement. And ultimately, when you are incorporating that particular joint venture agreement in incorporation or in a company, joint venture company, and if you are having the offset joint venture, then in that case you have to follow that particular offset policy of that particular sector itself. So, if you wanted to join the offset policy, I mean, if any public sector company join a offset policy and they wanted to stay out of the tag of the government, so that they can leverage their position against the other private player into the market, they should think about the equity participation, and accordingly they can incorporate the company. So, this is all about the technology transfer through the joint venture, and I believe it will going to be some improve your understanding relating this particular area, and you might further refer different documents which is publicly available on this particular segment, and also you can ask more questions, so that we can answer it out relating to these particular issues. Thank you.